Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. We're going to work on some items today that my neighbor brought me. She had these on top of her cabinets in her kitchen, and this color is no longer in and she's going lighter. So she brought them to me to make over, and wasn't real sure what to do with these, and then I decided to try to lighten them up and make them more farmhouse style. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and they're all a very heavy crop material, and but because they have this slick finish on them, I'm gonna put a coat of slick stick on this, and this is it's a Dixie Belle product, and it just helps paint stick to slick surfaces better. So I'm just going to do a coat of this on here. Now you could just spray this with a clear matte finish, or use another type of primer, but I feel like this needs something to help it stick. So I put one coat of this on each of these, and then I decided that I wanted to keep these white. So after I put a coat of this slick stick on all of these and let them dry well, then I'm going to put a coat of the color cotton, and that's a Dixie Belle color. Any white will work, or even an off-white, but I wanted these to be a little bit more crisp white because I want to make them look more farmhouse style. I thought about maybe putting some stamps on these, and then I just decided to use some of my molds instead. And this is a redesigned mold. I think this is called Farmhouse. I don't know. I'll look this one up and try to add it in the description. But I wanted to put some farmhouse style molds on this, molds. So I've had people ask what I put in my molds before I put the clay in, and as you can see, I'm using the DAS clay. That's just my preference. I feel like for the price, it does a better job than most of the others. Now, I put cornstarch in these first. Some people don't put anything in them first to keep this from sticking, but I just feel like it does a lot better job. It doesn't always come out the way I want it to if I don't put that in there. So just a light coat of cornstarch will keep your clay from sticking into your mold. So now this is before I put the color cotton on. This is just the dry slick stick, and I forgot to mention this, but I'm just going to glue these molds on because I want to be able to paint these the same color as the piece is. So I did forget to mention that I glue these on with Tite Bond, and I glue them while they're still wet because then they'll mold to your piece, and it's perfectly fine to just go ahead and glue them on like this. And then I let them dry only about 30 minutes to an hour before I paint them, and that works really good too. So I just make sure that when I put that Tite Bond on there that I really rub it near the ends, and then when I put this the molds onto my piece, I just very gently, but I make sure that I push around all the edges really well. Like I said, very gently so you don't mess up your mold, but it's very important that it makes good contact or you'll have a little crack there when it dries. So I do that to all my pieces, and I just kind of decided where I wanted each of the molds and just glue them in place with all the pieces. And then I painted each of these in the color cotton. And because I had this slick stick on here, one coat was all that I needed to cover these well. So I put one coat, and as you can see, this cotton is not a really bright white. It's a little off, but it's still what I consider white. So I paint all these pieces, and then once I let them dry, then I take some fine grit sandpaper and just sand over some of the high spots because I wanted these to be distressed. Now, if you'll remember, the distress color that I'm going to have is going to be the dark brown, but also the red. So I'm very careful when I'm distressing these that I don't sand down too much to the red. And as it turns out, you can't tell that it's red under there. But like I said, if I had distressed them too much, then you would have seen that red, and that's not the color I want. So once these are dry and once I've distressed them, then I wanted the molds to show up more, and I knew that distressing them wasn't going to work because I didn't have a dark underneath. So what I did was I took a small paintbrush and dipped it in my Stays On black ink, and then I just kind of brushed it around into the low spots of the mold, and it made them stand out more. Now this is a sign that I had my husband cut some boards because I wanted to make a sign that said pantry, and so this is just a couple of fencing boards that he connected with 2 small boards on the back side of each end. And now I'm adding, because this is a lighter wood, I'm adding some dark color underneath. So I'm just kind of sporadically painting, and I'm painting some brown and some black just to give me some darker distress, so that when I paint this sign and then I go back and distress it, I'll have some dark coming through. So that's the only reason that I'm painting here, and that's why I'm not worried with covering it well at all. And now this is dry, and so I'm putting 2 coats of the color cotton on here. And then once I get that painted on and let it dry, then I'll be able to distress down to this darker color. And obviously some of the lighter color will distress through also, and you won't really notice that much. But what you will notice is where I've distressed, where the dark is, and that should give me plenty of distress on this. And then I'll put a hanger on the back, or probably have to put a couple of hangers on this since it's kind of a longer sign. But I'll probably just put a couple of sawtooth hangers on this. And I'm going to take my stamp, and it's an IOD stamp set called Typesetting. And I'm using my uppercase letters here and stamping the word pantry. And because the whole word won't fit here, then I'm just going to have to add my Y back on. And I will say that I got this off a little bit and ended up having to saw off one end. But I like how that turned out once I got the one end sawed off. And now this is just a little wooden basket, and I've had these in my store for quite a while, and I have a couple of these left, and these colors just aren't, for some reason, selling well, so I think maybe it's time for a new color. So I'm going to put black on this first, so I'll have a good distress coat, and then I'm going to put the color Daisy on this. So that's a Dixie Belle color of yellow, and you can use any color you want. That's just the color I'm choosing here. And so I'm going to put 2 coats on this, and then I'll distress down to that black. Now, I didn't mention that on all these pieces, I used a top coat, and I used a Rust-Oleum clear matte finish on all of them. And on the sign, I did that top coat before I did my typesetting. And on the rolling pin, I used the top coat before I did my transfers. And with this basket, I'm going to be adding some stamps to it. and I'll do a top coat on this before I do the stamp. And you don't have to do the top coat before you do the stamps, but I just like to, just in case I mess up on the stamp. It's a lot easier to fix my mistake if I put a top coat on first. And I could do a clear coat after my stamp also, but I usually don't find that that's necessary, and I usually don't do that, especially with this stays on ink. I just really haven't ever had any problem with that bleeding or not staying on. But I'm using, this is called the crockery stamp, and I think this one is an IOD, and so I'm just using this same crockery stamp on both the front and back of this little wooden basket. I know that these are simple flips today, but this is just some little farmhouse items that I wanted to get out. And like I said, I needed to do that set that my neighbor brought me, so just wanted to kind of do a little farmhouse vignette. And this is a rolling pin that I had, and it's a new one, but I painted the handles black, and I used some antiquing wax and did the wood part of this, or the rolling part of this. But I wasn't happy with that stain. I like for it to have more of an older look, and this had too much red in it, I felt like. And obviously others agreed with me because it's one that hasn't sold, and I've had it out for a little while, so I thought I would just paint this one. And obviously it's not going to be food grade after I paint it. This is going to be for looks only. And I do 2 coats of the color cotton here, and then I freshened up that black also. And because after I painted the black the first time and distressed it, then I added some of the antiquing wax over that, and I really didn't like the look of that. It gave it kind of the distressed part more of a reddish look, and so again, I just don't like that reddish color. But this is a Dixie Belle transfer called Sunflower, obviously. And because I'm doing the yellow and white and black here, I thought the sunflowers would be perfect to go on this rolling pin. And then that will obviously make this just more of a display item. And so I picked a couple of sunflowers here and started the stem where the handle is on one side, and then on the other side, I'll stagger that flower in between, so that when you turn your rolling pin around, you'll see the flowers from all angles. But I'll make the stem come from the other handle on the next one, if that makes sense. So I use my plastic here to burnish that on once I have it on, and now I'm going to put this other little sunflower on the other side, just between, or just after that one rather. But I really like the look of these sunflowers with the black and white. And as you can see here, as you roll that around, you'll see some of the flower from all angles. I think these sunflowers will look good with this vignette, but also I think sunflowers display well in the fall, so it might be a good time to get this one out. And then I've already clear coated underneath that, and I will spray this one with a sealer or a clear coat afterwards also. But first, I'm going to put the word bake on this. So where I have this little empty spot where it's mostly white, I'm just going to stamp the word bake. And this is also the typesetting stamp, but obviously the lowercase. And I'll place that on both the areas that don't have the flower on it. And again, then from every direction, you'll be able to see the word bake. And again, I know these were more simple than I generally do, but this is actually the last item that I'll be doing in this video. And again, I know this will make this rolling pin not usable for cooking, but it makes a really neat display piece. And as I said before, you can see here now that I've taken just a little small paintbrush and brushed that black ink around in the low areas of these transfers to make them stand out more. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.